So welcome to our regular meeting of council in person and live streamed electronically for Tuesday, June 20th. Just a reminder of our Canada Day events, July 1st at Rosedale Hall and the Montague Forget-Me-Nots. So our land acknowledgement, the council and staff of the Township of Montague acknowledge that this sacred land on which the Township of Montague is now located and this meeting is being held is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. I'll have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. So moved by Deputy Reeve Carroll and seconded by Councillor Crabtree that the regular meeting of council agenda dated June 20th, 2023 be approved as amended this date to move item 8A from information to action. All in favor? And that's carried. If there's any disclosure of interest at this point in time or throughout the meeting? Moved by Councillor Crabtree, seconded by Councillor Abbas, that the minutes of the regular meeting of council, June 6, 2023, be approved as presented. All in favor? Carried. Where am I at here? This one? So under delegations. So we have a delegation for this evening. So if I could have Sherry come up to the podium, please.
Okay, do I have to do anything? No. Okay. Okay, good evening, members of council. My name is Sherry Minier, and I'm a spokesperson on behalf of concerned citizens opposed to a kennel license application by 790 Heritage Drive in Montague. A petition has been submitted to Montague Township Council to oppose the kennel license application by 790 Heritage Drive in Montague to breed vicious dogs. In 9 days, a total of 304 signatures were obtained from concerned citizens, including the majority of Montague residents along Heritage Drive, the majority of Montague residents in Andrewsville, residents in community which reside in neighboring municipalities which are adjacent to or in close proximity to Montague, as well as some visitors to our community, which include family and friends. Many existing bylaws and regulations within Canada are in alignment with the content of this petition. The following reference documents form the basis for this petition. Number 1, the Township of Montague's current dog control bylaw, number 2752-2003, including Section 1 definitions, Section 2 licensing, Section 3 kennels, Section 4 limit on number of pets, Section 9 dog bites, Section 10 vicious dogs, and Section 12 general administration. Number 2, the Dog Owners Liability Act of Ontario, DOLA, was also referenced for this document. Number 3, numerous dog control bylaws and regulations from different municipalities within the provinces of Ontario, Quebec, Alberta, and British Columbia were referenced. All of these had special requirements for vicious, dangerous, or potentially dangerous dogs. This petition used the same definitions as Montague's current bylaw. As per Montague Township's Dog Control Bylaw number 2752-2003, Section 1 definitions, a vicious dog shall mean, quote, a dog which, without provocation, has bitten a person or domestic animal, or any dog with a known propensity, tendency, or disposition to attack, without provocation, a person or domestic animal, or a dog which shows the tendency or disposition to be threatening or aggressive, or a dog which is attack trained and or is kept for the purposes of security or protection, whether it be residential, commercial or industrial, or a person's property. Attack shall mean an assault resulting in bleeding, bone breakage, sprains, or serious bruising. Bite shall mean a wound to the skin causing it to puncture or break. Kennel shall mean any premises where 4 or more purebred dogs are kept for commercial breeding purposes and/or where 4 or more dogs are boarded as a commercial service to the general public and which meets Montague's requirements for the zoning bylaw. 7 background statements are included on this petition. The background statements as shown on the petition are as follows. Statement number 1 is simply a definition of vicious dog as per Montague Township's current dog control bylaw 2752-2003. And again, vicious dog shall mean a dog which, without provocation, has bitten a person or domestic animal, or any dog with a known propensity, tendency, or disposition to attack, without provocation, a person or domestic animal, or a dog which shows the tendency or disposition to be threatening or aggressive. Quite simply, there is no place in our community for vicious dogs that attack and injure domestic animals or people. Statement number 2, whereas the owner of a dog deemed vicious by Montague's bylaw enforcement officer is required to comply with additional bylaw conditions at all times, and this is both on and off the owner's premises. With limited staffing, it's difficult for Montague to enforce these conditions required for vicious dogs. It relies on the honor system. Statement number 3, whereas bylaw enforcement in Montague is a reactive service. Bylaws are only enforced when a citizen calls in a complaint or an unsafe condition and the owner is in contravention of the bylaw. It's likely that the number of bylaw infractions is significantly higher than the number of complaints recorded in Montague. Statement number 4, whereas vicious dogs pose a higher risk to public safety. They have already exhibited a history of aggressive behavior and bylaw enforcement is reactive. The probability that a similar attack will be repeated is higher in dogs that have been deemed vicious. Statement number 5, whereas vicious dogs should not be permitted to breed. It's unethical to breed dangerous dogs that have already exhibited aggressive, threatening, and attack behavior. Vicious dogs should be sterilized to prevent breeding dogs with a genetic tendency for aggression. Dog owners should not profit from the sale of the offspring of vicious dogs, whereby increasing the number of dogs in the population with an inappropriate character trait, which is aggression. Statement number 6, whereas the kennel license application process needs to be updated to include all relevant dog and dog owner history and a review by council. Kennel licenses should not be approved at the sole discretion of a designated employee as per the current bylaw. Statement 7, whereas council cannot lose sight of the intent of our bylaws, laws that we all abide by in order to protect all citizens and keep our communities safe. If the current bylaw 2752-2003 no longer meets these objectives, then it needs to be reviewed, updated, and strengthened. And I'm aware that council is currently in the process of reviewing this particular bylaw. The petition itself. 304 signatures were obtained on this petition in a short 9 days. The petition states, quote, "We, the undersigned, petition the Montague Township Council as follows. Number 1, to urge council to oppose a kennel license application by 790 Heritage Drive, Merrickville, Ontario, to breed vicious dogs. Number 2, to urge council to review dog history and dog owner history when considering a kennel license application. Previous contraventions to Montague's bylaws must be taken into consideration. Number 3, to urge council to deny all kennel license applications to breed a vicious dog, regardless of the breed." In conclusions, There is a significant cost to our community associated with vicious dogs. There's a greater risk to public safety, as well as higher financial costs to the township and taxpayers for bylaw enforcement for vicious dogs. We urge council to listen to the concerned citizens in our community who are opposed to a kennel license to breed vicious dogs. We ask our Montague Township Council not to lose sight of the intent of our bylaws, to keep our communities safe for everyone, residents, family, friends, neighbors, visitors, and our family pets. Thank you. If I can, I'd like to pull up the actual petition. Okay. So this is the actual petition itself. I'm just going to scroll through. You can see the number of signatures on this petition, and this has been submitted to council, I believe it was last Monday.
Thank you. So now we'll move on to our report of municipal officers. And the first is our animal control bylaw update.
Thank you, Chair. In front of you this evening is a draft of a animal control bylaw. It was brought forward to committee last meeting, indicating that we had reached out to legal for a number of questions and clarification to ensure that we're implementing something into a bylaw that we could effectively defend in court. We can't obviously put items into bylaws that are not legal. It defeats the purpose of a bylaw. So legal has responded on a couple of items, but they're doing some deep digging on some of the other questions I had for case law and some of those types of things, because some of the questions we had were a little more detailed than some other bylaws have addressed from other municipalities. But in that, we did take a bylaw from Laurentian Valley, actually out of Renfrew County, because they had a serious attack recently where somebody lost half their face from a dog. And again, their bylaw was old and out of date. So we effectively took some of theirs to provide a draft to council with some of the items that legal has confirmed with us. So the new draft bylaw includes, but is not limited to, so now we're defining dangerous and vicious, two definitions for dogs, to ensure that there is a distinction between the two. Change in definitions to who the licensing officer is for kennels, which would be the clerk administrator. People can appeal to council, so there's a multi-step process. A grandfather portion for pit bulls and or prohibited dogs. Because with the change of implementing a new bylaw, we may have previous dogs that would have to be grandfathered in because we cannot retroactively implement a bylaw and address those issues based on legal's opinion. So licensing of a grandfathered dog that was dangerous or vicious would now be $500 as opposed to the $1,500 license fee due to the extra costs that are associated with bylaw enforcement, checking in and ensuring that they are meeting the requirements and constraints as put on the animal by the bylaw enforcement officer. This fee, to be honest, would just be a trial to see how much time it actually takes. That this fee may actually increase depending on the time and those type of things, because we do outsource a contract to a bylaw officer. So this is kind of a starting point as what we feel should be suffice for this type of situation, but just like our other fees and charges could be adjusted based on actual costs in future years. So licensing of kennels, section 5 has included an option for a license request that is denied. I spoke about that for the appeal process. The draft includes, it speaks to non-resident animals now and the expectations of these animals whenever they're in our municipality, because every municipality has a different animal control bylaw. So we will be able to potentially charge individuals if they're not meeting the requirements under 14AI. The draft bylaw includes Appendix A, a list of prohibited animals, notwithstanding animals that are permitted based on zoning. So you might read Appendix A, or people might read it and say, oh, well, cows are prohibited and all these things. No, it's based on the zoning, and that is addressed in the bylaw as well. The draft bylaw includes short form charges with increased fine amounts. So basically that the bylaw enforcement officer is able to fine people in a relatively quicker manner than our previous bylaw allowed. And we've changed the fine amounts to reflect current day costs as well. The draft bylaw is more detailed in general and provides the tools for the bylaw enforcement officer to address health and safety concerns of our citizens and animals alike in our municipality. So again, we're still waiting on a couple of things from legal that they are digging deep on, and our next meeting is August 1st. So it is recommended that we approve a draft bylaw, get some feedback from the community and council in that period of time to bring back a revised or options to this draft bylaw to ensure that we meet the requirements of notification to the public and changes, and ensure that people are aware of what's going on. But it is our recommendation to move forward with providing this draft agreement out to the public for comment and passing a bylaw at our August 1 meeting.
Okay. I'll open it up to questions, comments.
Sure, yeah, okay, Reed?
Sure.
Thanks, Ally. I think this was, done relatively quickly. I think that's a great point that we're waiting for the, some more legal advice to make sure that sometimes that just takes longer than we would like. But I think this is a good opportunity too as well with this draft bylaw to kind of start with it and then also get some feedback, like you said. And we have like a month and a bit kind of to get to that sort of finalization. We might get some more answers to as well. That being said, this is really pulled from a lot of other municipalities too as well, and it's not like it's made up in Montague. This is really just which we want to do is pull from what we've learned from other municipalities, and so it's a good example of getting it from other municipalities, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. So yeah, I think we're on the right track. So thanks, Ollie.
Okay. Gerald?
I actually spent a lot of time reading this one specifically because it's one of those touchy subjects which I think bothers a lot of people. So I'm going to quickly read you guys an email that I sent council just so I can put you guys on the same page as where I am. So I have taken some time to thoroughly review the proposed verbiage and complete some statistical research on my own. I do not believe that the wording as proposed is the correct course of action to take. I understand that the wording has been directly taken from DOLA, the Dog Liability Act. However, I firmly believe it would be irresponsible on our part to include the exact verbiage as detailed with DOLA. In our township bylaws, this has been a very hot topic in the provincial government level and has the potential to be revised, amended in the near future. With that being said, if we include the wording as proposed, we then are responsible for monitoring the activity related with this act and responsible for any required amendments. Like you've said in the past, the bylaws right now are 20 years old, so we are a little bit behind on the schedule. So what I suggested was that instead of taking direct verbiage and context out of DOLA, referencing DOLA directly, that would be allowing our bylaw to be more fluid and give the bylaw officer himself more power to use the most current bylaw that is in place. The reason I say this is right now there's a lot of cases in Toronto where people have had their dogs taken because they look like other breeds. Not because they've done an aggressive act, not because they've done anything wrong, just because of a look. So if you have an upset neighbor, the reason I say referencing it directly in this, people are going to find information. Information is very fluid, very free to find. If it's right there in your face, it allows somebody to use that to a neighbor that's upset you and has a I'm trying to think of a boxer style dog. I have a boxer at home. So a boxer dog, he decides to say that well, he feels it looks like a pit bull, and it just causes altercations where now we have to deal with bylaw going after certain things. So this way here, it leaves it to the bylaw officer himself to deal with it, as opposed to us going through the nitty gritty and stuff. He can deal with it, and if he feels that it's of something to go after, or something's wrong with it, he'll deal with it, and it just takes that verbiage out of the direct bylaw and puts it on DOLA only. That was my belief. That's how I feel.
Okay, Lauren?
Okay, a few questions, although maybe they're not best placed for this, because they're more like, I'm not understanding the difference between a dangerous dog and a vicious dog.
So a dangerous dog is one that has bitten. A vicious dog is one that has tendencies to snarl, froth at the mouth at people walking by. So a dangerous dog would be more obviously classified as a bigger threat and bigger issues, but a vicious dog that has tendencies, I know where I lived in Beachburg, there was a dog, even where I live now, there's a dog on my road that runs out at people, snarls at them, does all those things. So bylaw would still have the ability to implement infractions on them to ensure that that dog does not leave their property, does not do all those things. A dangerous dog is a dog that would have actually bitten someone, and then we would deal with that accordingly as well.
Okay, can we change this then? Because our definition currently says a dangerous dog is one with a tendency to be threatening.
So the draft one says that?
Yeah,
Dangerous dog has killed a domestic animal without provocation while off the owners, has bitten, has shown a disposition or tendency to be threatening or aggressive. So we can take 4 out as
Yeah.
it's already dealt with in vicious, yes.
yeah, that's what I would do, yeah,
Yeah.
otherwise it's repetitive. Okay, next question is, grandfathered prohibited dog would be a dog deemed dangerous and or vicious by the bylaw enforcement officer after the date of this bylaw. So a dog that has been deemed dangerous or vicious, you're not allowed to own, but they also are going to be grandfathered in.
Sorry, so it would be, so if a dog was deemed dangerous or vicious prior to this bylaw being implemented, it's going to be grandfathered in because the bylaw, we cannot effectively retroact a
Actively,
bylaw.
that makes
Yes.
sense. So we'll have
Yeah.
to update that because
Yeah.
it says after the date of this bylaw.
Yeah.
Okay, so prior to the that makes sense to me. Okay, kennel shall mean an establishment in which greater than 3 dogs or domesticated animals. Are cats and bunnies and all of that stuff being thrown into this as well?
We don't deal with cats.
So can we take out domesticated animals then? Because otherwise we're talking about if you have 2 dogs and 1 cat, you have to get a kennel.
So we can, but if you're zoned appropriately, like technically you need to be zoned, you need to have 2 hectares to have a bunny.
What about a cat?
We don't deal
We
with
don't
cats.
have any cats like that.
So what I'm saying is this is saying a kennel is required if you have more than 3 domesticated animals.
The cat would do it.
So we can change it to just dog, yes.
Can we do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I would read this and be like, oh, I've got 5 cats, I've got to get a kennel license. You know what I mean? Like, because a cat is a domestic, or some cats are domesticated, some cats are fully
Sure.
wild. But yeah, that would be confusing to somebody reading this. Pet shall include, oh, I've got something weird going on here. Pet shall include dog, comma, or both, comma.
That's just, cat was taken out, we'll just fix that, that's just,
okay.
yeah, that's just administration.
It's like both of what?
Yeah,
Okay, and so then we have pit bull or prohibited dog, and then we include a dog that has been deemed dangerous and or vicious by the bylaw enforcement officer. So if the dog has been, just from my understanding, if the dog has been deemed dangerous or vicious, it's now prohibited. They cannot have it.
so they have different variations to implement with that dog. Because a vicious dog, they can take stages first before removing it. If it's deemed dangerous, then yes, it will have to be removed from our municipality. If it's bitten somebody, it's gotta be removed.
That's it.
Vicious can be, there's staged approach,
Okay,
yeah.
do we want to include both here though then? If it's a vicious dog, should it then automatically become a prohibited dog if it's not?
So we did have that discussion, and that's one of those things that we're waiting on with legal, because technically vicious could be prohibited, but isn't necessarily automatically prohibited, so we're waiting on better wording from legal on that.
And I think that that kind of rolls into, well, not my next, I have two, but I'll skip down to that, where we do that, where we start to say what the restrictions would be. There's a list, and it ends in remove the dangerous dog from the township. If this is supposed to be, sorry, this is maybe just me being picky, but if this is supposed to be a like choice kind of list, like we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, it may result in remove the dangerous dog from the township. That's not clear in here. To me, this is a list of all of these things will happen rather than this one and this. So you could be semicolon and, or start at not limited to, or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that goes back up to B3B, no person is permitted to own, keep, harbor, or possess any animal that is deemed to be dangerous or vicious. So as soon as we deem a dog vicious, we're saying you can't keep it.
Yeah, so we have to, that's why we're getting the perfected wording on that.
Change that one, yeah. Limitation on number of pets. Shall we change that to dogs? Yeah.
Well, pet, I think pet says dog, does it not? In the
Oh, it says, yeah, dog,
'Cause we're getting rid
comma,
of
or both, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so then my previous question of, I'm still not sure of quite what the difference is between dangerous and vicious. I'm happy with that, other than, again, both the way the list is, they both end in and remove from, kind of, so we need to make that as in, like, these are all of the things that could happen. And that's it, I'm done. And if you wanna send me a Word version of this, I can just track changes, unless you caught all of that.
I did get most of it, yeah.
Okay, I was like, I can highlight it. or
Just because
something
some of
that's
them, the
easier.
vicious one, that's one of the ones that we have to get the correct wording with legal, because we were in the same mindset as you're coming from. So the other ones are more like administrative, so that's,
Okay.
but I'll make sure that I got them all. I'll follow up with you.
Okay, sounds good.
Yep.
That's everything. So moved by Councillor Abbas and seconded by Councillor Kenny, that council direct the clerk administrator to bring forth a bylaw for approval to the August 1st, 2023 council meeting as per the draft bylaw presented this date, as amended, as updated, as
Wordsmith.
revised. As amended and with public input, and that council direct the clerk administrator to bring forth further legal information as it is received from council. All in favor? Carried. Okay, and our next is another report from you, Ali.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a report similar to last year for the Fall for Merrickville event. In order for them to get a liquor license, it needs to be deemed a municipally significant event, which we have a number of criteria for the applicant to meet, and they have met all of their criteria. So we're recommending to council to deem it a municipally significant event. We'll get the insurance certificate normally the week of the event, just because when they get the liquor license and everything, timing. So once we get it, then it's fine. If we don't receive it, the clerk administrator has the ability to not deem it a municipally significant event before the event happens.
Okay, any questions? Okay. So moved by Councillor Kenny and seconded by Deputy Reeve Carroll, that council deem the Fall for Merrickville to be municipally significant with the provision that such a certificate of insurance of comprehensive general liability insurance issued by an insurance company licensed to issue such certificate in the province of Ontario, providing for coverage for the duration of the special event in the amount not less than $5 million for injuries, damages, tort claims, actions caused by or resulting from the special event and liquor liability, if there is a special occasion permit, and naming the municipality as an additional insured party. All in favor? That's carried. report again is from Ali.
Thank you, Chair. This is for formal approval of the revised 2023 pay grid as presented to committee at the previous meeting, and reserve usage up to a maximum amount. We have an in-camera discussion later on this evening, but up to a maximum amount, just to ensure that we're meeting all that criteria for our year-end and audit.
Okay, do you have any questions? Okay, so moved by Deputy Reeve Carroll and seconded by Councillor Crabtree that council approve the updated 2023 pay grid to be effective July 1st, 2023, and that council approve the use of salary reserves up to 48,000 for the 2023 year. All in favor? And that's carried. And we have another report, Ali.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm happy to announce that we have a deputy clerk starting July 10th. Sarah Thompson has accepted the position, and she will be starting here July 10th. We were actually hoping the flooring was going to be completed by that time, but they won't be back to finish until July 17th, so she'll be in the mix of all the mess with us. But we're excited to welcome her on and have her start in July.
So moved by Councillor Crabtree and seconded by Councillor Abbas that council appoint Sarah Thompson by bylaw to the deputy clerk position effective July 10th, 2023. All in favor? And that's carried. Next is reports to committees. So moved by Councillor Abbas, seconded by Councillor Kenny, that council approve the minutes of the Committee of Whole meeting of June 6, 2023, and approve the recommendations contained within. All in favor? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Kenny and seconded by Deputy Reeve Carroll that council accept the Smith Falls Library Board minutes from April 25th, 2023 as information. All in favor? And that is carried. So petitions. And now bylaws. So moved by Deputy Reeve Carroll, seconded by Councillor Crabtree, that bylaw 3997 2023, a bylaw to establish an expense policy for the Township of Montague, be read a first, second, and third time and passed, signed, and sealed this 20th day of June 2023. All in favor? And that's carried. Moved by Councillor Crabtree, seconded by Councillor Abbas, that bylaw 3998 2023, a bylaw to establish remuneration and expenses for members of council and local boards, be read a first, second, and third time and passed, signed, and sealed this 20th day of June 2023. All in favor? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Abbas, seconded by Councillor Kenny, that bylaw 3999 2023, a bylaw to adopt a personnel policy for the Township of Montague, be read a first, second, and third time and passed, signed, and sealed this 20th day of June 2023. All in favor? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Kenny, seconded by Deputy Reeve Carroll, that bylaw 4000 2023, a bylaw to appoint a deputy clerk, be read a first, second, and third time and passed, signed, and sealed this 20th day of June 2023. All in favor? And that's carried. Moved by Deputy Reeve Carroll and seconded by Councillor Crabtree, that bylaw 4001 2023, a bylaw to authorize the execution of a we have no motion or notice of motion, and our action item is 8A, County Council media release.
Thanks, Reeve. Thanks, Reeve. Yeah, just a quick one on this one. It's I mean, we talk about the vegetation management that's in there too as well. I think one of the cool things that I got out of that meeting and that point was that we've done a lot of that throughout the county. We're doing that obviously here too in Montague. And now they're looking at certain parts of the roadsides that are like a lot wider too as well. They've really like sort of ripped out and sprayed and made sure all the invasive. And they're starting to do some testing, and I guess it's been done in some other municipalities too as well, of putting down more pollinator as when they're replanting stuff. So I think it's kind of neat, like different ways that the county is it's not just they're spraying stuff. It's a lot of pulling and that kind of stuff. But the planning they've been doing with a lot of the pollinator stuff should be well recognized, especially the people that were not overly happy with the spraying as they were trying to deal with that issue. And this is what we're trying to replace it with, and it's actually something we're putting down as better. So I think they're doing the right things to move forward with it. I think that should be like really emphasized, because after the spraying, we want to make sure that there was a reason behind that. And the spraying we've seen as a major reduction to, as well as what the county's been doing as they've been trying to transition over to a better process. So I think it's a very positive thing. The tourism activity thing I think is really neat. And we're going to discuss that in the cow today too as well. We discussed it a little bit before too as well, as that sort of that money that the county is granting to the lower municipalities for tourism ideas. And I think it's going to be an interesting conversation, just like the one that we have for the environmental side with the grant stuff too as well. And we had talked about some composting ideas and that kind of stuff, and how what that would look like, and maybe doing it through grants and all that stuff. And there's opportunities through that too as well. So it's nice to see that county stuff that's coming down, that we're implementing in a very quick fashion too as well. The other one I think, and this is the touchy one, we had and Reeve Jennings and I had a big strategic meeting yesterday at the county too as well. And one of those things was obviously like, do we stay on top of the e-GOR and stuff? And most people don't know what that is, but it's really about connecting us with cell networks and connecting us with ISP, so internet too as well. It has been a slow process to be critical since basically 2012 when they kind of started it. And I remember being on a conference call a couple of years ago during the beginning of the pandemic as we were talking about this, and I was kind of asking, when are we going to get like shovels in the ground so we can actually have internet in our rural municipalities? It just seems like it's been taking a long time. I think I've mentioned that in the past, where they said, you know, new guy on the block, what are you talking about? I'm like, people are waiting for a long time to get this. Now we're finally, I think they're hitting it into overdrive now, and they've gotten like the money's being spent, and there's all kinds of projects going on as far as cell towers and everything else. So in theory, we should be seeing a lot stronger cell services in our area over the next couple of years. The amount of towers that are going up in Latter County and Montague even specifically are going up quite quickly, and that's a positive thing. And we're seeing the ISPs, so that's your internet service, the ones that you have at home, sort of catching up too as well. So I think we're after many years of us sort of waiting and sort of hoping, I think we're going to see some real movement over the next. Now they've already put delays on it because we should have been already basically having things almost done by now from 2012 is what they discussed. Maybe 2025, 2026 by the time we see finalization. But I think the positive side is that we are seeing a home stretch. Another one too as well, and I brought this up, something I talked about sometimes that money that's available for people, where what can we do to help those people that don't have, like, that are struggling, and they might have a big bill coming up, and we discuss the funds that we have that are available from the county too as well, that we might be able to help our neighbors with that kind of idea. Another one too as well is, do we know people that have small businesses or want to start a small business? And we have a great sort of partnership with the small business advisory. So like if you want to start a small business, as a student, there's grants out there that we've given to students, that we have just some from SFDCI that have gotten that, where they start their own business and they're getting a grant for like $1,500 to help start that business. And I think it's to help to incentivize those younger people to start their business, but also people that are starting businesses. Sometimes they don't know where to go. So if you have friends or you know people that are maybe just starting a business, or they have a business in their basement, they're thinking about how do I take it to the next level, get in contact with our county people, because there could be an opportunity that they could help you with and connect you and network you and help you make that next step. So I think these are all these things that we don't necessarily understand what the county is, and it's nice we have people in the public too as well that can actually see that too as well. What are you pointing out to me?
Cindy James.
Cindy James is the
at Valley
manager
Heartland.
at Valley Heartland. Yeah. So Valley Heartland is the connecting agency we have, and they're right in town too as well. And they've done some really impactful presentations to us about how they can help small businesses and help people too as well. And it's one of those, once again, like when we're out and about, and now that people in the public know about it too as well, if you know those people, we can hopefully help them. So there's a lot of stuff going on, I think, in our municipal governments that are there to support our people, as much as we can get it out there and talk about it. But I think a lot of it, the best way to get it there, we can post it on social media sites all we want. it's really word of mouth, and if we're talking to people and we hear people or we see somebody, those are great things. So I think once again, these media releases are fantastic, but it's also good to share what's kind of coming from the county side, because that's that other side that is part of it. So thank you.
So any unfinished business or other business? Nope. Okay, so now I'll open it up to questions from the public. Yes, Maggie?
I have a question about the dog bylaw. For people that have possibly a vicious or dangerous animal, in there it says things about having a license, having proof of rabies shots, proof of immunization. Is there any way to ensure that these people have proof of adequate insurance? That if something happened, whether it be homeowner's insurance, some kind of pet insurance, I don't know what's available. But is there any way before they get this license to say, okay, well, do you have insurance to cover any accidents?
I'll leave that to Ali.
That's a great question. I don't know if we can request that, but I'm gonna ask.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Maggie.
Good question, yeah.
Yes?
I would appreciate it if you could go over the application one more time of the grandfather clause in this, and how long does it last? Is it the life of the dog, or the life of the animal in question? Does the grandfathering mean you can not have to pay higher license fees or have to pay fines? Could you just go over how in practice the grandfather clause might work?
So Chair, through you. So the grandfather clause, we cannot legally retroactively implement a bylaw. So similar to whenever DOLA came in and the province had to grandfather dogs. So really any of those type of breeds would be 18 years old right now and should be deceased. So the grandfather clause would be based off of the event of when that dog became dangerous. So that dog would have restrictions on it, and moving forward, it would have to pay the additional license fee because our bylaw would have to ensure that those restrictions are met. But as far as moving forward, that dog would have to have a number of restraints. If they didn't follow those, then we would go through the court system and potentially have the dog euthanized if there was further issues with that animal. But it would be the life of the animal unless there was issues with abiding by our bylaw and we had to go to court. Yeah.
And the conditions put on a dangerous or vicious dog in this township, it's unlikely that the control officer could be very proactive in applying, in making sure conditions are met. But neighbors, if they understand what the conditions are, can alert a control officer, and then the control officer can take appropriate action. Is it possible then to put into the public domain, the township's website, what the conditions will be on a dog that is being deemed dangerous or vicious, so that concerned residents can understand what conditions are supposed to be in play and can contact the control officer if they believe the conditions are not being met?
Chair, through you. So I'm not sure. Another great question. We'll have to actually ask because normally that's not public information. But in a situation like this, when we're asking them to post signs that say vicious dog, we're kind of pointing it out anyhow. So I would actually have to follow up. I don't know that answer.
Okay, because there's a great deal of confusion in my own mind as to what the conditions were on the dogs that were involved in the very unfortunate attack of a couple of months ago. And it was hard for me to communicate with the control officer without really knowing what it was that the control officer was supposed to be enforcing. And I think throughout all of the bylaw, enforcement is going to be a really difficult issue, given just the amount of resources that the township would have. And it would be very helpful if, I mean, you know, in the case where a dog has been deemed vicious, according to the rules of the bylaw, that the neighbors understand what the control measures would be.
Yes.
Good evening. You mentioned that before the bylaws are finally passed on the 1st of August, you're looking from input from the community, having read the bylaws. And what form do you expect that to take? Are you hoping that community members will read the bylaws and then send in their questions by email to you, Allison, or how is that going to work?
So Chair, through you. So no different than our fees and charges bylaw update, we'll post in the paper that we're intending to pass a new animal control bylaw and that the draft bylaw is up on our website. For accessibility purposes, people can always come in and get a paper copy. And then they will provide comment on the draft bylaw to myself, and we will put that in the report to council.
Any further questions? Okay.
I have some questions with regards to the bylaw. Thank you very much for looking at the bylaw and bringing forth some really good information. As you know, there's a lot of information out there, and I've been doing a lot of reading, and I will be submitting some additional documents to you that are municipalities within Ontario that have very strong bylaws, and the precedence has already been set in Ontario with these communities, so I think it would be easy for Montague to follow suit. I'm sure your law would agree that if it's already been passed somewhere, that the law would be in agreement. But examples, there's a bylaw from South Bruce that's actually very good, and it speaks to the comment here earlier about the question of insurance. It brings up special license fees. It does talk about an owner of a vicious dog shall maintain a policy for a certain amount of liability. It also talks about microchipping the dogs. Most dogs are microchipped, but the registration would be held with the license number in the township. So if the microchip is red, they know it's a vicious dog. It's very simple to do. You already have a mechanism in place with the dog name and number and who the owner is with the dog tag. A microchip would just be one more column to follow that. That way, anybody that reads the number knows it's a vicious dog. Let me see. It talks about signage, and it also talks about breeding. And specifically, it says, no person shall breed or permit to breed a vicious dog. So it states right in the bylaw that you can't breed these animals. So that is one of the items as well. I would like to see the definition, if possible, vicious or dangerous dog, an added item in the statement to include that a dog that has been declared dangerous in another municipality in Ontario has to be, that's part of the definition of vicious dog. If it's been prior declared in another municipality, that it should be included in the bylaw. And that way, any dogs being imported from, say, a different province or across a border or whatever, and that dog has a history of being dangerous or vicious, it should be declared at the time that the dog arrives in our township.
Okay.
Can we? You want to?
So Sherry, I have your comments and I will be including them in my next report as well. I have all the items that you've sent, but if you have further ones, by all means, send them over as well. So yeah, Sherry has sent those to me.
Perfect, yeah.
The only thing, Sherry, I think I think Alex spoke to this before, if we're creating our own database, we can provide it to anybody who asks us for it. But as far as finding out whether a dog's vicious that's coming from Alberta, unless they come, sorry.
So Sherry, so I've done some research on that too. So we can ask them to sign an affidavit saying that it was never deemed vicious or dangerous anywhere else. So then if we have to take them to court, we have a legal document. Yeah.
Okay, no questions online?
Let me check. I have none. Okay. Oh, there's one more.
Oh, sorry?
Or just, will the draft bylaw be posted soon or that?
So it'll probably be posted tomorrow.
I have a question.
Okay.
My name is Irene Chawley, and once the draft bylaw has been approved and tweaked, how long is the process to make it formal?
So it'll be August 1st
To make it formal?
to make it a bylaw, effective
Okay, so you don't
bylaw.
have to go through a first or second or third reading and prolong it?
Potentially, if there's a lot of comments and a lot of changes requested that we have to follow up on, it could potentially. The recommendation from staff, just to ensure that we get a bylaw implemented that is more up to date than our 20-year-old bylaw, would be to at least implement and bring back amendments to the bylaw then, if it's gonna be held up. We don't wanna hold this up any longer than we have to, but we want comments from the public. So we will work around any situation as far as extending, because it's 20 years old. We need to get some form of a newer bylaw in place, and then we can always make amendments after. Yeah.
One more question regarding a dog that is currently deemed vicious, but in the new bylaw it's dangerous because it's bitten. Is that going to be considered dangerous in the new bylaw or vicious?
So it would be based on how it's deemed by the bylaw officer. But again, under vicious, whenever we got it cleaned up a little better, it could still have to be removed. So it would still be a prohibited dog potentially and have those same requirements, and could still have the same end result. So it wouldn't have a whole lot of, I don't think, difference as far as that goes.
Hi. In everything I'm hearing, I'm not hearing the words attacks unprovoked. And having had personal experience with animals that attack unprovoked, that is a way of saying that the animal is both dangerous and vicious. In my experience, which was some time ago, I was attacked by a German Shepherd who pushed me to the ground and lodged its teeth in my face. The animal was not destroyed. So in any organization where you are looking at how an animal behaves, very little is given to that process. Animals are deemed vicious or dangerous by bylaws, that's true. But in the provision of the individual dog or animal, its inherent tendencies should be taken into account because the animal in question is bred specifically to do damage to people and other animals. So I think your bylaw wording could include animal that attacks unprovoked.
So Chair, through you, the dangerous dog definition has bitten or injured a human being or domestic animal without provocation on public or private property.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One more question about your appendix, and I'm trying to understand how the draft bylaw works, and in Appendix C, there is a fine of $200 for operating a kennel, and different fines for different things. Those, in practice, I wonder if you can reassure me, that's not going to operate as a sort of backdoor license, in the sense that, okay, I paid my fine, now I'm good to go.
Chair, through you, absolutely not. So those fines are actually paid at the town of Perth through the POA. The license is paid here and signed off by us. So someone who has been fined for illegally running a kennel are charged and will be charged every single day that they continue to do that if they don't adhere to the bylaw. That does not mean that, oh, I paid the $200, now I can have a kennel. Absolutely not.
And in that case, I'm sorry, does council have the right to shut the kennel down?
So we always have the ability to take them to court and go through that system. Yep.
That's what I was gonna say, we would, like, if where that case where they, you know, continually not do
We
it.
escalate.
We can escalate and we can go that process and deal with it accordingly for sure, yeah.
Okay, one last question.
Clarification, in the new bylaw, or the proposed bylaw, it talks about the right to refuse a kennel license to an owner that's previously owned a vicious or dangerous dog. I love that statement. Can you tell me what the process is today for the kennel license approval? I did hear you say that at the last meeting that it had changed slightly to include yourself in the process for the approval. Can you just take me through that?
Correct. So previously with our previous animal control bylaw, or animal control officer by law enforcement officer, she did all the licensing without staff. So now it goes through bylaw, planning, and myself as the ultimate signing authority for the currently. I will still be the licensing officer with the current draft bylaw, taking into account all of the items that are in here as well. Yep.
So moved by Councillor Crabtree and seconded by Councillor Abbas that council recess at 6:57 PM. All in favor? That's carried. Okay. So we'll switch to
Welcome back. Sorry for the delay. We're busy bustling around here, but now we are back on track. So, I like this. That's fair though, thank you though. It's always nice when Marie keeps me in line. So we start with the opening of the meeting, so the land acknowledgement. The council and staff of the Township of Montague acknowledge the sacred land on which the Township of Montague is now located. And this meeting is being held in ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin and Ashabi Nation. So the adoption of our agenda is moved by Councillor Abbas and seconded by Councillor Crabtree, that the Committee of the Whole agenda dated June 20th, 2023 be approved as presented. All in favor? Any closures of interest or delegations? We don't have any of those. And reports is the first one. Is the exciting planning fees brought forward by our planner, Kirsten.
Okay. So in 2020, there were reports brought to council regarding amendments to the planning fees, at that time to reduce the refundable deposits as they related to development and site plan agreements and to set a more appropriate fee for consent applications. The report you have before you this evening addresses the following. So a review of planning fees charged by area municipalities was conducted. Our current planning fee chart, there's proposal to add a couple of items to that for tasks that aren't already included. As well, in this report, there's a breakdown of the tasks that are required to complete a planning application from the initial consultation to the file completion, as well as a proposed reasonable fee structure. So staff recently reviewed the township's current planning fee structure. It's noted under the discussion and options section on page 2 of your report. And we also looked at planning fee data from area municipalities. There's a spreadsheet that is attached as Schedule C with information from Beckwith, Drummond, North Elmsley, Lanark Highlands, Merrickville, Smiths Falls, and Tay Valley. Some other municipalities were consulted as well, but those pricings were left off the list because they were excessively higher than ours, and we wanted to sort of keep, and they were more urban, so we wanted to keep it more rural municipalities, more like our own. You can see by the Schedule C that the amounts that Montague Township, well, I guess ours is under discussion options on page 2, but our fees are significantly less than our counterparts. So the current fee structure for Montague lists various planning applications and notes a fee of $250 for each, with the exception of consent applications where we charge $400 for the first lot and $100 for subsequent lots off the same land holding. Based on the current fee structure, one could interpret that a development agreement would require the same time and effort as a 200 lot subdivision, and this couldn't be further from the truth. And there are also planning applications that aren't included on our current list that should be noted, which includes the lifting of zoning holding provisions and deeming bylaws. So suggested fees have been noted for those. And it is also recommended that we add a fee for other staff time for the review and commenting of technical documents and for conducting site visits, as well as a fee for additional assistance that would be over and above the norm prior to the submission of the application. I want to make it really clear that planning staff are here to assist. We want to answer questions. We want to provide procedural guidance. We want to encourage people to feel welcome to reach out and ask questions, but it can be challenging when substantially incomplete applications are submitted with a lot of blank pages and missing information, because there is a really fine line between assisting and completing. For example, if someone submits an application that is significantly incomplete and requires planning assistance to answer all the questions, then there could be some sort of a misinterpretation or misconception that what they're submitting is going to be approved because planning staff assisted them. So you have to really walk that careful line. For those requiring a significant amount of assistance, there is an advantage to seeking a professional planning consultant, an external planning consultant to help them. And I do know that there are some that help with simply the application process, and some that, the application submission process, and some that will assist through the entire process. So planning fees are collected to ensure costs associated with a development proposal are the responsibility of the applicant, not the community as a whole. And we need to look at this as a cost recovery endeavor, staff time, consultant consultations, and report review from our senior consultant planner. So the proposed planning fee structure in Schedule B takes into account a more accurate representation of the tasks that are listed in Schedule A, which again is an itemized clarification of each task that would be required and the average time that would be expended by township planning staff. So if there are any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Kirsten. I think a big part is this is you know, like what was mentioned there, like back in 2020, we kind of started a bit of trying to clean it up a little bit, make it more organized, making sure that we're getting a cost recovery, which it looks like you've looked at too as well. And that's kind of the direction we're trying to go. There's a lot of talk in the county too, as well, as far as we're going through a big process there too as well, with a lot of the changes in planning too as well. So I think we're pretty up to date, which is nice to see, and that we're going to get closer to the right cost recovery, and we're charging the right fees for what it is for the services. Do you think there's maybe that's through Ally too as well, as there's an opportunity, like as we're helping people though, or we're doing it, we don't obviously want to fill out the application for them like you say, but is there a way that we can identify ourselves and say, like, you know what, as I give you this advice, does not mean that you will sign here, that it does not mean that the approval will go through? Do we do that anyways it is, or?
So Chair, through you, so it's no different than building, right? Like, we don't fill in people's building permits. We cannot, because again, that's not what our purpose is here. And it would take a ton of staff time if we started doing that. So I guess my concern would be is that our junior planner is very busy already. Her phone's always ringing off the hook. That we just don't have the staff to be able to assist people like that. But in the same sense, it potentially, like she said, if she's assisting, they're going to assume it's going to go through.
Yeah. So we want to make sure we're and it's great. And if they have that many questions, like I agree that somebody that should go to and hire a planner to help them and get through that process. So, anyways, I think that's great. I'll open up to any questions at all from council. If there are any questions at all from council, yes, Jim.
I was just going to say that. Excuse me, just what you brought up. If someone come in, someone like me that's not very good at doing forms and stuff, and said, "Look, could you help me? I'm willing to pay $50 or whatever it is to do it," I think that would be a great idea, because there's a lot of people that just aren't that handy with filling forms out. So I don't know if that's something that would be reasonable, or.
I think it's a capacity issue. I feel like you said that there's just no time.
We
not
don't have the capacity.
Because I know what it's like sometimes when you fill it, like right now, I'm trying to get warranty on a speaker. And I'll tell you, the speaker's $1,000, but I mean, it's just, you know, you take it in one spot, they tell you to take, then they say don't take it, then they tell you to fill this thing out, and my wife's trying to do it, and it's just been a mess. You know, so I didn't know, I just thought if it was something like, you know, as long as only a few questions or something.
I think it's a valid comment, and I think, Kirsten, like if there is a few questions,
Yes.
like I mean, but that's that point too as well. We want to make sure it's like, okay, you're getting to a point where like reaching out to a planner is good. I think like that's the biggest thing. I want to make sure we're obviously offering a good customer service, but we're also not. There's a certain point that we're getting to as well. So that's a very valid. Sorry, I'll go to Gerald first, and I'll come back to you more. That's okay.
Thank you. Do we have a local person that we can say, hey,
No.
I was just
So just to clarify that, we as staff never and cannot recommend somebody to somebody in the public, because then it could be construed that we have favoritism and all those things. We don't recommend anyone to anybody.
No, I was just wondering if like there's a firm, I'm not necessarily like,
We say Google it.
Because it would, because if we say go with these guys, then that private company will say, why is the public entity
No,
suggesting that? And that's a valid comment, because you want to help people out.
I was saying local, like, trying to make it, drive down the street, turn left. It's
Ontario Hydro will do that, they'll give a list, they'll say, here's a list of people we
Yeah,
know that's
like a few
adequate for
numbers.
that, you pick somebody.
locally. I wasn't saying like specifically a person, but if there was a kind of a cheat sheet, as it were, that we could say, here's a photocopy of the 10 in the area.
But I think Reeve Jennings made a great point though, is Googling planners in the area, you're gonna get the few that come up, so that's a valid question though, yeah.
That was pretty much my question, but I guess I have another question. I hear a lot about like the changes to what the conservation authorities are now allowed to do as far as like reviewing for applications and things. Has there been a financial impact for us in the limitations that have been put on them?
Nothing that I've seen to date. No, they're still involved in all planning applications, like consents. They still go to conservation for comment because they still have the ability to comment on certain things.
Yeah.
Hazards, source water protection, those are two areas that they are legally required to provide comments on.
Sorry, the tap came through very loud.
So, Chair, through you, the Conservation Authority, we met with them on Friday at our CIO's meeting, and they'll be coming to present to council with an agreement and things in the next month. Well,
for their new I get that. That's for the how the money's spent kind of thing. But I do know like in January there was some sort of change as to what they were allowed to comment on. It was all, like limited now to these things that you've listed.
The bills,
Right.
yeah.
So I wasn't sure if the things that they were no longer allowed to comment on had any sort of financial impact, if we were now having to do it, or if we're outsourcing it, or if it was never really.
Did you want to speak to that?
Sure. So we do outsource it. The applicant is responsible for the cost. But again, whenever the authorities come in August or September, they're looking at options to be able to provide us those services as well. So that's all gonna kind of come forward, but right now it has no financial impact on us.
Okay, but that's it. So we're asking that whoever's the applicant is, and we outsource it. Okay.
Yeah, I think with planning too as well, there's so many entities of it. That's one of the things we were talking about the county too as well, saying, like, we have a big master plan that's come back from the county to try to look at all of planning too as well, and how it filters down to the lower tiers. But also like, is there duplication, is there to simplify certain ideas, because it obviously goes through the township, and we have parts that go through the conservation authority, then has to go to the county. And there's but that's exactly, there's different entities that kind of dive in there get their piece of the pie per se, so it's and there's a big, it's a big one at the county right now. We're very short on planners at the county because we've lost our other planner. So really, we literally have a assistant in the planning department, and that is the planning department right now at the county, which is scary. But we do have consultants that are supporting it, but that's also a very costly endeavor too as well. But I think that we're going to hear a lot about planning over the next couple of years, from what the province's changes that I think are coming. And also the way that we might be able to implement it too as well, through the township and through the county too as well. So there'll be a lot of changes. Anything else?
No, I did want to make a point that no one here caught my mathematical error, but a staff member told me at lunch. So I was going to give a prize, but on Schedule B, I did have an addition error. Site plan amendment proposed. It should be 500. Thank you for not pointing.
We're just being kind, that's all.
That's the point of it. At the last meeting, I said 511, so yeah. I still hear about it. Okay, so any more questions? So I guess notice will be made public of the proposed fee amendment, and then something will be brought back to a meeting in August.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thanks, Crystal.
Thank you.
So as far as that goes, I have moved by Councillor Crabtree and seconded by Councillor Kennedy that the council direct staff to draft an amendment to Schedule A of the bylaw 3970-2023, being a bylaw to establish user fees and charges administered by the corporation of the township of Montague to reflect the amended planning fees proposed herein, to post a public notice of the proposed changes and to bring the amended bylaw to council for consideration on August 1st, 2023. All in favor? Thank you. Steve is chomping at the bit here to talk about the rural road speed limits data, so take it away, Steve.
Thank you, Chair. So the last meeting, staff was directed to bring back information pertaining to the estimated speed costs associated with switching from unposted to posted speed limits. As you probably see reading through, it's extremely costly to put up signs. Signs are about $150 per sign. And the data went through with everything. I even found ways to try and limit the amount of signs we're using because the first number I came up with was very high. So this is one that I think we'd be able to get away with this amount of signage if this was the case, but in the 40,000 range is quite expensive, plus labor, which is a costly thing. Montague has a lot of that rock around, and it doesn't make signs so easy to install. One of the big things associated with this report is the amount of traffic data, thanks to council for purchasing 2 of the radars, discrete monitors. We've been able to collect a lot of data on our roadways. So really 2 of the one missing so far is Guthrie. It's going out there shortly. But a lot of the roads you guys would be familiar with, speeding complaints or a lot of inquiries. We do have quite a bit of data on these ones, and I tried to include as much as I could, including the ADT, so the daily traffic. What the speed limit is, as you can see, is unposted is very common on pretty well all our roadways. 85th percentile and 50th percentile speeds. So 85th I've included kind of in there and what that is. So 85th percentile is what we determine our speed complaints by. So that's what 85% of road users and below are driving that speed, and 50th is the same, just at the 50th percentile. So reading through, you can kind of see that there's a few roads that probably do have a bit higher speed on them. One to note is we're currently going through is Rosedale North. It's one of the higher one with 89 right now, and majority of our gravel roads we're in a pretty good percent. But I mean, I tried to include everything I could there. There's a crazy amount of signs. It does add a lot of labor costs, as once these are put up, they must be inspected yearly, and it's an additional liability with these signs on our roadway. So I have put in for this to be for information, but I've also included options if there was a survey council like to mail out or post that. There's a couple options on how we could go about that with questions, or we're open to changes as well. But that is my rural road speed reduction cost and data report for you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, I mean, I think it's good to get, the one thing I really like about this is if we would have done this 4 years ago, we wouldn't have any data whatsoever to really kind of even talk about. It's nice to have the data too as well. And also, this is not a Montague specific issue. This actually, we discussed once again, it's nice at the county side of it, you have your counterparts. I mean, it's every municipality talks about the speed problems. And the county, and this is one thing I learned up there just recently though, is because this happened before Rick Jennings and I got up there, was they've started a traffic calming did a traffic calming study or traffic, like they went out to like a firm, I guess, right, to talk about about what kind of traffic calming ideas that we can maybe do. They're looking forward to presenting that to county council, but that is also going to be shared to the lower tier municipalities in order to help maybe facilitate some ideas that could possibly help with some of the speed reduction or making it safer. So there is some works in the way too as well, which I think could be a positive thing, hopefully, for us as being recognized as that, these complaints are, like I said, everywhere. So when that study comes back and it's shared with us, the county, and it's trickled down to obviously to the lower tiers, I think, I'm hoping that we might be able to use some of those strategies too as well. And I'm sure we'll bring Steve back up with a report to discuss even those opportunities, maybe to once again make the roads as safe as we possibly can. So I want to bring that up too as well, because that's an important part that is, it's being discussed in many places, and And something is coming back to as well to try to make things better for our roadway. So on that note too as well, I'd like to open up for any questions from council. I see. No questions. We have lots of information. No questions from council. So on that note, thank you, Steve, for your report. But I won't let you go anywhere yet, obviously. Moved by Councillor Kenny and seconded by Reeve Jennings. The council received the rural roads speed reduction costs and data for information. All in favor? That's carried. Next is the Pinery Road agreement from Steve.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so this is one that's been back to council quite a few times lately. Staff brought it back again just with some changes in wording that we received once we went through finalizing the letter of support about the road allowance. The change really came back to indemnifying the landowner for any allegations of that road existing, and anything that may occur on that land, we would then indemnify that landowner. Staff was slightly concerned about potential costs that may be associated with this, as it is a road that has been led to residents to believe that that was road allowance over the years, and there is quite a bit of traffic. It seems that people have an understanding that that is a road allowance when it's absolutely not. So the liability and the risk associated with this landowner and legal costs affected by this, it has a potential to be quite high. So staff kind of thought it'd be important to bring something back where we raise this attention to council and go out and at least see what the cost would be associated with actually stopping up and closing this, so that the municipality wouldn't incur any future legal fees associated with this. I'm hoping there's an easier way to stop up and close rather than surveying the whole alleged road. That we're still waiting to hear back on, but that's kind of where staff went with the recommendation, is that we explore these costs, and then basically council can make the decision on whether we should, spend the financial now to save potential liability down the road and potentially high costs associated with some legal battles with this landowner. Try to put a brief kind of information in there about this and the writing that goes along with it. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions associated with this report before you.
Thanks, Steve. It's a tricky one when you're dealing with all kinds of liability and what are the chances of it actually happening, if it actually ever happens or not, too, as well. Yeah, so if there's any questions from council as far as that goes. Gerald?
So this is just making a road not a road?
Formally, by bylaw.
Okay. So we would go through, are we going to do anything to it to make it so it's not drivable, or?
So basically what would occur is nothing would really change other than we'd have survey costs, legal costs associated with it. And we have lots of notice. There's a significant cost that goes along with stopping up and closing a roadway. Although
it's not a roadway to stop.
It's not nothing really stop and close, but it's a formality that has went through the legal channels to make sure that we have cut all ties to this, and basically there is no road there. It'd be removed from
So
everything.
we're removing a road without removing a road. We're removing a road in the sense that it's no longer our road, which was never our road.
Alleged.
Yeah.
Alleged. There's a random map that we have that shows that it could be a road, but there's no documentation anywhere that states that this is a road anywhere that has been found. So it's like, it's one of these sort of like messes over the years of, that now was in front of us in 2023. And is it, could anything ever happen?
Possibly.
Probably not, but is there that slight chance? And that's what we talked about, those slight chances, and it's a...
Well, if you look at Google Map, Ford Road does this again, it still doesn't.
But I think it is important to, highlight the risk that goes along with signing how we currently are. The way the agreement's worded right now will be basically indemnify him for everything. And the municipality is taking on that financial burden of anything that goes on. In speaking with Ali, it was concerning on staff levels for sure, but we want to bring forward to council for consideration as well.
Sure.
Chair, just through you, just like for complete clarity, is that if someone goes and wants to still access, because this is used regularly by locals, that if they use it, the owner can call his lawyer and charge us all of the costs for that if we indemnify them on this for life. So us as staff cannot bring that recommendation forward because it could cost a ton of money year after year after year. So that's why our recommendation is to just go through the whole process, then stop up and close the roadway that's not actually a roadway, and then we're done with it.
But actually, Morgan, I'll let you ask your question first. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just so confused. So it's not our road. If someone goes on private property, somehow we are legally responsible.
So it's on a map as showing as our road, but there's no documents anywhere saying that it's actually our road allowance. It's a very confusing, convoluted situation, but.
So it's basically what will do, will make it no longer muddy. It's
Yes.
very clear it's private property. If anything happens,
yes,
it's private property.
Yes.
But right now, for whatever reason, this lawyer thinks that he can say it's private property, and we're going through this whole process of this agreement to say it's private property, but if someone gets hurt, we can still.
They want us to indemnify them forever, like it would be registered on title, indemnification, that any cost that that owner would have associated with anybody using that property, which there are a number of locals that feel that that is a road allowance, that it would all be the cost of the municipality.
You're speaking as to if they were getting an accident on that road, we're liable, is that where you're going?
Not just that, it's to defend Mr. Jabbers. If someone goes on his property and he wants to sue them or go after them, we're paying for all those costs.
Okay.
Everything associated with it.
No matter if they're
He's still
successful.
required to put a fence up or something, right? I feel like last time we talked about this, he was required to put a gate up or something.
So last time we spoke, it was literally a letter of support stating that we support him posting a letter, we'd post a letter, and then they rebutted, I guess, with this clause that they wanted included. And basically, you know, no matter what, as long as he takes them to court, if they're successful or not, it at all costs is going to be on the municipality. If it's, you know, if he feels every single thing that has to go through court, it's no loss to him, because if we sign that, it comes back to
Is this a road?
success, if he's successful or not.
Yeah.
Is this a road he uses himself? Or could we not just get rid of the road?
Probably would cost
Can
the
we-
same as just surveying it and legally making it gone.
So I think we have to keep in mind that whenever locals have used something for 20 or 30 years, you put a fence up, they're cutting it and they're going on it anyways. So I think that he's having issues, and that's why this is coming forward in the wording that it's coming forward in.
Now, you said there might be other options as far as like surveying a four-quarter area, something like that along those lines too as well. We're gonna look at different options that maybe could be keeping the cost down per se.
100%. So we're not looking at, you know, going out and spending 25,000 on survey to make sure we survey every peg throughout that property. We're going to explore our most financially responsible option we can find that will get us through this road closure and bring that back to council for approval. So basically, we're just looking for approval for staff to go ahead and go down this avenue, see what the costs are going to be, and then bring back a formal report to council and say, listen, these are the costs of what it's going to cost to close it. Would council like to take the cost of stopping up and closing this? Or would council like to take that risk that are we going to get into a legal battle or not? And council can kind of decide how we're going to direct on that. So it's kind of just giving a second choice rather than just the large upfront cost of survey.
That's fair. I mean, like over even my short term in council, probably Jim can probably think about it even when he was on council in the past, like the amount of like goofy, weird like subdivisions that they made in like 1933 or something like that. Like, and you're like, what is going on here? Like the weird sort of awkward stuff, and they gotta get cleaned up as they go. It's amazing what's happening. And this is not, once again, unique to Montague. This is like everywhere, like especially rural municipalities. All of these things that might have happened like 30, 40, 50, 100 years ago. And then you're coming across them in an old, dusted off book, and you're like, oh, like we got to clean that up first too as well. So there's a lot of stuff that happens over that time so there's a lot of land out there that just doesn't really get looked at.
Top of the subway there, I'm just coming out of Matheson, there's all roads there with a bunch of little houses going to be built at that time. And that was one that was brought up.
The big one there, exactly. Yeah. So there's these cases where it's like, and it's just like, when we just talked about the dog thing, right? Like when we stumble upon an issue and it's like, oh, hey, we gotta We gotta fix that. Sorry, people at home, for that big bang. All right, any other questions at all as far as that goes? We look forward to kind of hearing back, Steve, like what our cost options are and everything else too as well with that goes. So if no more other questions, and we have that moved by Reeve Jennings and seconded by Councillor Bass, the council direct staff to explore costs associated with stopping up and closing their roadway, and the staff be directed to bring a survey pricing back to the future meeting for approval. All in favor? Thank you, Stephen. I guess there's something else here. I just skipped over that. I was looking at the seniors once. All right, so yeah, so Steve, that we're gonna talk about Rosedale Road. And, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm still here. Couldn't be happier to be presented. Yeah, so the report before you is pertaining to Rosedale Road North, geotechnical and engineering. As council is aware, during our capital maintenance program, we were fortunate and had $77,000 in capital savings. Anticipated we're probably gonna have about 20,000 in asphalt spot repairs on the 2 roads remaining to be completed. So that leaves us about 57,000 in the capital to that is unallocated now, and it's savings. So staff and the clerk were looking over how we could, put this money to good use in our township. And one that staff really highlighted when you're looking at the roads needs study, asset management plan, the one that really sticks out as a large capital investment is Rosedale Road North, 10.5 kilometers long, pure asphalt. It's a very expensive road to redo. As I highlighted in the report, we're looking at approximately today's dollars in the $3 million range. It's a large investment for a township, like any township, but specifically Montague Township. It's a lot of money to invest in a road. Currently, it's broken into 4 road segments. 3 are still today able to probably be partially rehabbed. Kind of went over that. It's more your typical what you see the county do a lot of. You're pulverizing, putting in some material, granulated material, and then you're repaving on top of it. The one section is more likely to be, I'd say we can probably still do some partial, but there's a lot more full depth reconstruction in that area, and that comes with extreme high costs. So getting this project to a shovel-ready state to try and be ready for grant funding, anything we can do to get some money for this roadway is really going to save us. And by doing these 2 things, that really shows when we're doing the grant application. I'm far from an expert on grants, but speaking to our great treasurer, investing a bit of money and showing that you're willing to spend money to get these projects moving ahead and ready, shelf ready, really helps you in the grant process when it comes to being successful in these. It's anticipated probably in the $50,000 range to get this project to the shovel ready. Doesn't mean it's going to be completed next year, in 5 years. It's more or less if there's something we see that we can jump all over, we're ready to apply it, that we're ready to get into this project, starting it as soon as possible. Kind of listed exactly kind of when it was in the roads or the asset management plan it was slated. And speaking with our treasurer again, it's this happens frequently all over the place, that these roads don't get completed as they're planned in the asset management plan, just due to the high financial burden that they do have. In the roads needs study, you guys were probably well familiar with that. It's kind of listed as a priority road, and that's more or less in there that if we can be successful with the grant, that we're going to tackle these ones. It's not that we're going to try and do it all with municipal money. You've heard probably enough from me. I tried to put lots of fancy engineering fun terms in there for you guys. I love this stuff, so if there's any report or any questions, I'd be more than happy to discuss it.
Steve, we love hearing from you, so that's fantastic. Before we get that, like one of the things I just want to backtrack about, because the roads need study, and that was a big discussion point to us well from the last road council. We went through that too as well, and trying to find the priority roads and trying to find the roads that we literally can't afford, and making sure that they're there so that we can put a plan in place. And basically what this is being done right now in order to do a plan in place, so we can look at a way to go after grant funding, because that was the only way that we knew even back then that obviously that we were going to be able to be able to pay for this. So like this is the step, like sort of what we had to do with Matheson too as well, to put the steps forward in order to get the money, in order to in order to get everything ready for the grant funding and get the grant funding for it. I think this is like, once again, we're looking at a direction from that road. We cannot afford to do this road. We don't have the money for it. So let's make sure we have the plan in place to, like, whatever that grant funding it could be in 2026 when that grant funding comes out. So I think that's an important aspect that was part of that discussion that we've been kind of talking about from a few years ago too as well. So on that note, Jim.
My question just was, is there, whether you or Karen can explain, Reeve here, why does Lanark not have the road north when they look after the road south? Like,
yeah,
I just don't understand that, and that was brought up on another council too. It doesn't make sense to me that if we should own the other road then too. Like, it should be one way or the other. We don't want it.
We don't want it.
No, but I'm just saying, like, it just doesn't make sense when you got north and south, and that burden's on us when it should be a county road.
If we could upload Rosedale North to the county,
yeah,
we would be happy to do it. I think we've thrown that at Terry once too as well. But the one thing too as well, do you want to answer that?
Go ahead.
Okay, I was just saying, like, you have to remember too as well that Rosedale South is a connecting link between two county roads. So that it links two county roads. Right now, there's like Rosedale North, it starts at a county road, but it does indirectly go into the provincial road, but it has to hit McLaughlin first, right? So there was I guess one of those things in the updating stage, and there was that's it's all connected for that road, but in this case, it's not. If we could upload it, I mean, try, and we'll keep trying if we can. But it is a big road, yeah, exactly, yeah. But yeah, it's a good question because it was one of those ones I brought up. Is that kind of, yeah, that's it, right on it. We got her.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve. Any other questions at all, or any questions of $1 million project for a road? Okay. So moved by Councillor Abbas and seconded by Councillor Crabtree that council direct staff to obtain geotechnical and engineering quotations for the design of Rosedale Road North, and the staff bring pricing back to a future council meeting for approval. All in favor? That's approved. Folks. So Steve is now gone, so that's we'll move on to Allison. Will talk about our Seniors Activity Living Centers program expansion.
Thank you, Chair. So currently, the Ministry for Seniors and Accessibility has opened an expansion call for proposals for a Senior Active Living Center program. They're looking to add 15 centers to receive the funding. I did include a copy of the funding application or guide to the report. Currently, we received the Senior Community Grant for 2023 to March 2024. That our first event that we posted is already sold out, our cruise. So this would basically be an annual fund that we would be available to have based on our reporting back to the province of having attendance and meeting the criteria that they require. The first year they'll fund up to 80%, which is fall, winter to March 31st, 2024, which we already have funding for, but still we might be able to enhance and do even more. And then after that, it's 50% per year from the provincial government. The township's responsible for a minimum of 20% of the net operating. So what we're recommending, I've been in discussions with the admin assistant as well, as I would be pulling on that individual. Now that we'll have a deputy clerk, I will be able to pull on that individual some more to assist with some community affairs items and community events. I've also spoke to the Forget-Me-Nots in relation to working with them with something like this as well, similar to what we're doing right now with our current grant. And they are in favor as well. I think that they need more of the administrative side, the financial side, the planning side, and we would be there to assist with that. So what I'm recommending to council is that we apply for the funding and that we would allocate, we have 10,000 in lieu, so that would be, in lieu can be our rental fees, staff time for financials and admin. And then also set aside in our 2024 budget, $5,000 for a recreational senior cost. So we do have 10,000 for our community, our Montague Rec and Culture Committee, which is A lot of the events, yes, are open to seniors as well, but we do focus a lot on our youth, our kids, and our families. And we do have seniors come out, absolutely, it's community events. But that maybe we also put some funds aside, especially if 50% can be funded from the province. That's similar to our cruise, that could be an annual thing. You know, our fall color tour could be an annual thing. We could start doing more in our community with the senior groups as well, and they make up 36% of our population. So it is important that we hit them as well. So again, my recommendation is for us to apply. If we're successful, we'll obviously implement. If we're not, I have another idea for a grant that's open in September.
Thanks, Ally. Once again, this is great. I mean, anything that we can do to basically enrich our community and add more activities, like both with our seniors, and we're doing a lot with our rec committee too as well. I think it's, once again, I think it's a great idea. We chip in a little bit, we're getting grant money out of it, and I think that's a big benefit for us. And I think we can find that money in order to make things even better for people in our community. So on that note, any questions as far as that goes? Are we all kind of on board and saying, let's see if we can get that money? If we don't get that money, then Hallie will go get some more money. All right, perfect, guys. So moved by Councillor Crabtree and seconded by Councillor Kenny that Council Direct staff to submit a proposal for the Senior Active Living Center program expansion. That council provide a commitment to in lieu contributions of $10,000 and in cash contributions of $5,000 for the Senior Activity Living Centers program if successful in the application. All in favor? Our next one, as we kind of alluded to in our regular meeting, is the local tourism initiative from our clerk administrator.
Thank you, Chair. So each year the county provides to their lower tiers an opportunity to apply for $5,000 towards local tourism initiatives. Those initiatives look different based on each lower tier and what they offer their citizens and the communities alike. So last year, Montague did not use the $5,000. There was issues with the boat launch and insurance and all those things. The county has set that aside, so we actually have $10,000 this year to utilize. Recommendation from staff, and we're actually out getting pricing right now, is our municipal township signs when you come in look like they're temporary signs that are just strapped to 4x4s. So we're looking at getting something a little more fancy, permanent looking. We will send it out to council, but we're more looking for something with like the big M that's going to be 3D. It's going to stand out some. It's going to be instead of the post, make the post a little beefier looking. Just to maybe highlight those. We're also looking at implementing a new sign at Rosedale. Our current sign's pretty small. The rec committee would also like underneath where they can put Canada Day, July 1st, that we can post some of the events that are happening, because we've been having a lot of events and very successful events, so it's great. And then with any of the additional funds, our administrative assistant's also working on new pamphlets for the municipality, because ours are very outdated, to get those printed. And if not, to be honest, we'll probably have some funds in our budget to get some pamphlets printed. So that's kind of where we're looking at for this year. For next year, the Reeve brought it up as well in discussions with her, is that we'd like to reach out to Algonquin College, the Heritage Carpentry, and see if they could do a timber frame picnic shelter over at Rosedale. It's hot over there. It was hot over there today, to allow people to kind of some shaded area if they're over there with their kids and things like that. And then potentially if the 22 acres are up and running the following year, we could potentially put one over there. Just that we're kind of thinking in that realm for us. That also helps the Algonquin College, because you pay for the supplies, so it pays for that side of things, but we're getting a huge benefit for the work that they supply to us. So this is just for information, unless council would like to change the initiatives that we're looking at.
Thanks, Ally. I'll open up if there's some thoughts behind that. Yeah.
We're 100% sure this is annual, like it's not like next year they'll be like, oh, we're not going to do it again.
It seems to be, this is something that the county continually has been wanting to do, and I think it looks like it's going to be something that will continue unless we at the county council decide that that's what we're going to nick out of the budget. But I mean, the next that small amount out of the budget's not gonna really save anything, so that's not one of the ones that would be on the chopping block that I would think, but, yeah. Good.
Yeah. Kind of unrelated. The boat launch, what happened there?
Our insurance doesn't want the boat launch.
The other boat launch that's at, I think it might be Boat Launch Road.
Yeah.
Is that our boat launch? How do we have the insurance for that one?
So this one is new, and there's so much liability, even in a lot of like local areas. If anybody slips and falls, a lot of actually municipalities are taking them out and people are putting personal ones in. So our insurance highly recommended against us doing this. So last year we kind of just backed off and we decided we'd move forward with something else.
Okay, so it's like, I'm assuming the other one is ours, so that one's like grandfathered in because it was already there, and so the insurance covers it.
We have an agreement with the Conservation Authority, right?
Conservation
Because the
Authority.
Conservation Authority is the one that actually like pays for like the dock that's there, all that stuff. So it's really, it falls
It's
under their,
theirs.
it falls under their bracket, yeah.
So it's not our insurance that worries about that one, but this was a new one and our insurance.
It would be
was
ours.
Yeah, because the Conservation Authority is more the, yeah. Questions? Anything else? We're good?
That's good for that.
Sounds good, all right. So Councillor, moved by Councillor Kenny, seconded by Reeve Jennings, that Council accepts the 2023 Local Tourism Initiative as information. All in favor? Carried. Next is, we love talking about garbage in Montague, so let's, so take it away with the Waste Initiative.
Yes, so thank you, Chair. So again, our upper tier, Lanark County, they have for the last several years had the electric vehicle initiative that they matched for any incentives that you would receive through the federal government for electric vehicles. And I know we had brought it up, I believe, to council saying that they were looking at changing it because some lower tiers are implementing electric Zambonis and other great initiatives. So they have changed it and opened it up to $10,000 for electric vehicle or organic waste funds for municipalities. Our council, we have heard, I know Councillor Kenny, you brought up several times on how can we promote composting, reduced garbage, all those type of things. So what we proposed, and we applied to the county for the 10,000, and they have approved us for this initiative if we choose to go forward, is to do, actually, and they loved our idea with the poster competition. And actually asked us if we'd do one for just the school separately so that the kids would get really involved at that age as well. So we would do create a poster, an electronic poster and a drawn poster, and then have one for the school. So the winner of the contest would win a food cycler, which is about $900 item. So it's a good incentive. And that with the remaining funds, we would purchase composters and provide them free to first come, first serve type of thing, to residents to promote the composting and obviously reduced waste. We've gone down to the 2 bags, or well, actually it's more per week, but we have the 2 bags per week. And we want to encourage obviously composting and moving forward with this. So this would just be for this year. And if next year it comes forward, we will look at other initiatives, things that we can look at. And I'm hoping that this will be an annual thing from the county as well.
Thanks, Ali. I think it's a big winner. I mean, I know we've seen this in Rideau Lakes. They were doing one day where they were selling the those composters, like the ones that in their, what's that? The kitchen ones, and they were selling those at a reduced cost. They were covering some of the costs in order to try to get people in order to do those. Those are really cool too as well, obviously, because I mean, taking the moisture out is what the weight of your garbage is, which is what we pay for. And also makes it into something that's usable at home too as well. And so I think these are good initiatives, and hopefully we can promote some of those, because I know one of the biggest issues that some people have, say sometimes in our very rural areas, is they're afraid to put composters in. And I know I did this up in our cottage in Barry's Bay. We put a composter, and we had a nice friendly bear that wanted to go through it too as well. So I mean, we have to be cognizant of that too as well. But we're starting to see more options like this food cycler thing too as well. So I like this idea as far as utilizing once again that grant opportunity, because trying to convert people over more and more is a really big added benefit. And if we can do this once again without a cost from our municipal side of it, I think it's a positive thing. So on that note, is there any comments or yes?
What's the uptake currently? We sell the composters at cost, right?
Yeah,
Do we sell a lot of them or?
we sell enough actually. And we've had even a few people this week talking about composters. We're kind of holding people off in case we are gonna give them away. But yeah, so we actually, for this size of municipality, I would say we actually sell quite a few.
Okay, good. I just don't wanna, get 160 composters to give away and be like, anyone?
So I think for that, we would actually have people come in and put their name in, and then we would order accordingly, so that we don't have a ton of space to keep them. So it would be, come put your name on the list and we'll get them ordered in.
Okay.
And then the food cycler, obviously, we're kind of excited about that, because then we would use those posters as advertisement and
Yeah,
outreach.
because I think that's the biggest problem with compost, just people don't know what to put in it to not attract animals and all of that, and what to put in it to make sure it actually creates dirt and not just slime. So yeah, that would be great.
Yes, Jim.
Do they have a folder? Maybe we had one before on composters. I had one, I'll say 40 years ago. I got one, it was a black thing put up there, we got it. And it was a long time. Now, maybe we were putting the wrong stuff in, I'm not sure, but it was a long time before I got to the actual dirt, like till it went back to it. Is there, like when you buy it, if you get a composter, do they have something that tells you put banana skins in or put something in or not put in, or do you just throw everything in it?
The Municipal Waste Group last year, 2 years ago, put together a pamphlet for these. We do have them available at the front, and I believe that's an admin assistant provides them to anybody that purchases one. And it's just kind of like how to on composting. So that's a great little pamphlet that every resident is one. And if you don't buy one, if you want one, we can help you.
I'll just take some pictures.
So yeah, Jim will be coming in and speaking to you guys. I think that's great, because it's one thing to give the composter away, it's another thing to make sure that people understand.
Well, that's what I'm saying,
what
like,
it
if
is.
you just put your kitchen stuff in, you're creating slime, you're never gonna get dirt, you gotta add browns and stuff to actually,
Yeah, so I think the education side of it, but it is, it's a very valid point though, because I think that's what scares a lot of people off sometimes too, as well, is the realization of it. And I think also just like we continue to educate people of why you should take that stuff out of our landfills. I mean, that's the biggest one. I think a lot of people think it just decomposes in the landfills. And I remember being at the sorry, I'm gonna do a family story, but the Toronto Science Center and going through it, and they had a whole showing of what happens and how it. Basically, it's not decomposing, it's fermenting, and that's where the methane gas comes. That's where all your problems come from. That's where your issues from. And it's like, this is where people, I think, there's that misconception of why composting is so important and what it actually does. So, anyway, it was very balanced. So it's great that we educate too as well. So, anyways, on that note, Ali's gonna point.
Maybe Chair, through you, maybe council would be interested in doing a video and promoting how to compost
I think that'd be a lot of fun.
as council members.
I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Similar to our Christmas
Which is
video.
not similar to our Christmas video, very different from our Christmas video.
But it got a lot of a lot of people watched it, right? So maybe it would be something that we could also look at.
Yeah, I think anything to make to educate entertainingly is a good way of doing it. So I think that as our admin is a little red in the face. Anyways, that's good. Good questions, and that's good. Perfect. Okay, so moved by Reeve Jennings and seconded by Councillor Abbas. The council accepts the 2023 Leonard County Electric Vehicle and Waste Initiative information. All in favor? Perfect. So next on the list is the. Yeah, we got to get some reason though. Yeah. So the next one is the climate action plan draft. Allison will talk about that real quick.
Thank you, Chair. So this is coming from the Lanark County Climate Action Plan Working Group. They put together a draft, and they're asking that each municipality take a look at it. We don't have a public representative, and that you provide comments and concerns back prior to August. So if council can take a look at this, provide your comments and concerns back to me, I will put together a document to send back to the group. And that's all at this point.
Yeah, it's a pretty thorough document, basically, to kind of bring through a lot of basically initiatives or ideas, or and as advisory to councils to see, like, are we doing the right things as we're building and we're buying stuff and everything else. And I think there's a big part on page 32, we talk about the priority goals of it, supporting electric vehicles, transition to low carbon transportation, advancing transportation, increase the use of local and renewable energy, improve energy efficiency in existing buildings, sequester carbon and protect natural resources, optimize organic waste diversion, which we just talked about, and create a climate consensus community culture. So like a lot of it, giving the advising of what we're building and everything else. So I think it's the group size is shrunk down quite a lot, but I think we have the right sort of people that are there talking about it, and it's always part of. I know at the county we talk about it. Every sort of decision is what does the climate lens look like as we do that, and that's really important as we're building social housing and we're doing that kind of stuff. So. But read through it and get those comments. I think it's well validated to bring forward, so we can basically more send it off to the group. So, any questions on that at all? Or?
Can I just get it? Can I just get it like not like this, like not through this?
Your PDF?
Yeah, or PDF or Word, just not. Yeah.
I don't have it in my house.
Yeah, just something not through this. I think it's difficult to make.
Like from the digital side of like looking at the.
I don't know, the thing that we use.
Like that thing, yeah.
Yeah, just with these little.
If you go through our website too as well, to the iCompass side, you can open up a PDF off that, and you can just print it right from that too as well.
And it'll just be the PDF.
It'll just be a
It won't
PDF.
be a PDF of everything.
Yeah, so even if you use the HTML side, you can
Yeah.
actually just save the document instead of the PDF. But I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
That's my work email.
I'm like Jim. I'm like I can't.
Sorry.
It's too much. Yeah.
Ali will print you a nice pretty copy. That's cool. That's good. That's funny. There's no other questions or anything at all. Okay, so moved by Councillor Abbas and seconded by Councillor Crabtree that the council provides the Lander County Climate Action Plan Working Group their comments and concerns of the first draft as discussed in this state. All in favor? So we got no reports of the committees, no petitions, no motion or notice of motions, unfinished business or other business. And before we adjourn, do we have any burning questions from the audience? Anybody at all? Okay, Meg.
I have a question regarding the proposed planning fee structure costs. Some of them have deposits, some of them don't have deposits. Some of them have changed to kind of include the deposit. Do people actually get the deposit back?
Yes.
That was quick.
That was quick.
But there's a but there though, right? Like if the reason why the deposit is there is for.
Right, so the deposits are collected basically as, I'm gonna call it an insurance policy that the applicant is going to complete something. That could be registering the development agreement. So when I receive the registered development agreement, then they get the deposit back. So it's kind of like holding something back. And then if they don't register, I'm using the development agreement because it's the easiest one. If they don't register the development agreement, then we can register it on their behalf, use the deposit, and then require them to reimburse us for any additional funds over and above, because it's most likely going to cost more than $250 for legal fees and to register an agreement. So if they
the
choose,
deposit is not for your time.
no.
That's the fee.
The fee is for staff time for the planning, our senior planning consultant, JB2G. That all comes out of fees. The deposit's only used for, let's say we needed legal, which is very rare. But if we needed legal or registration costs, maybe a peer review of a report like an EIS or a Hydro-G, that's what the deposit's used for. So for me, when a file is completed, I put the check requisition in and reimburse the applicant. Yeah. Thank you. You're welcome.
And this cleans it up a little bit more too as well, to be more. This cleans it up a little bit more to be more transparent, to make sure the fee is the fee and then there's the deposit instead of dipping into the deposit.
Yeah, because they were talking about, it takes this many hours to do this, but you've got a deposit, why aren't you using that deposit to make up for the extra hours? But if it can't be used for that, I understand.
Right. Any burning questions online? Anything else? Perfect. All right. We love talking about garbage. Well, it's funny we talk about garbage. I think and the city of Ottawa is going through a crazy process right now.
I've been listening.
And it's been entertaining for me to watch because I know I've been talking about garbage for the last few years. And I really love actually Mark. Sorry, I was going to go on a side tangent. Mark Cyclops sort of point where he literally brought forth thinking that this was going to be the solution. He says we're going to have everybody put literally the Montague. I think he read the Montague Township bylaw and said like 2 eggs of garbage and 1 extra one at Christmas and all of that stuff. And that would almost pass. That was the closest one to pass. And I'm like, I almost wanted to call him and say, did you just read the Montague one in order to make sure you're trying to fix the Ottawa one? Is that what's going on? So anyways, that was pretty cool. So anyways, on that note, let's close this up and because we're going to have an in-camera coming up too as well. So moved by Councillor Crabtree and seconded by Councillor Kenny. At the committee of the whole meeting for June 20th, 2023, now be adjourned at 8:06 p.m. All in favor? That's carried. Thanks, folks.
I muted.
So welcome back. So moved by Councillor Abbas and seconded by Councillor Kenny that council resume the June 20th, 2023 meeting at 8:11 p.m. All in favor? That's carried. So moved by Councillor Kenny and seconded by Deputy Reeve Carroll that this council moves into closed session at 8:11 p.m. as per section 2392 of the Municipal Act SO 2001 in order to address two items. Item 1, Human Resources Public Works Manager. 2392, a meeting or part of a meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered is B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Item 2, Human Resources Compensation Review of all staff. 2392, a meeting or part of a meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered is B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and that the clerk, administrator, acting treasurer remain in the room. All in favor? And carried.